A very good morning to you, Lee Ann, and to our viewers at home. Today marking day 2 of the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement Business Forum. We're coming to you live from the Cape Town International Convention Center, and this is where delegates have already started arriving here for the sessions. We must say yesterday was a jam-packed day when you look at those discussions, the high-level discussions that were had here by the panelists, delegates, and about 54 nations from the African continent that will gather here for the 3 days for this forum, coming to you at a time when there are talks underway, Leon, where we're talking about just creating one economy for the African continent, one market for the African continent, and this is where those delegates will gather for the 3 days, just more or less touch on those prospects and value chains around the African market. I must say, it's very, very jam-packed, and most of them just looking at the fact that there have been stumbling blocks, there have been hurdles in terms of the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement that was signed for by about 54 of those nations 3 years ago. So today, marking day 2 of the physical, so this is the first physical engagement of those leaders from the African continent. We have heads of states here, we have financial experts here, and we have small business and medium enterprise sector delegates here, and most of them are just looking at the prospect of just exploring Africa and creating that market, one trade market for Africa without those hurdles. Leon?
Yeah. Talk about heads of states. Who are we talking about? Who's being represented there?
So, as we talk about right now, we're expecting to see President Cyril Ramaphosa to form part of this engagement right now. So it's still a little bit murky where that is concerned, because he was expected to give a keynote address yesterday, but we saw Minister Ibrahim Patel come through to give the opening address to the heads of states here and those delegates. So we're expecting heads of states from for instance, from Zimbabwe, for instance, from Angola, from Nigeria, from Ghana, most of them just coming through here to just talk about those ideas and how we can explore this African market and ensure that this becomes a reality, because most of them just worried about the talk shop around this engagement, around the economy, and they're saying that indeed Africa is well resourced in terms of the mineral resources that are on the ground, gold, diamonds, and most of them just talking about the fact that most of these resources need to now start talking to the people on the ground. They need to benefit the people on the ground, and that can come through creating one economy for the African continent. So we're expecting that most of them will just gather here today and talk about just ideas around how we can explore this, because when you look at it, there have been a lot of tariff hinges in terms of how Africa can relate with each other and how most of these countries on the African continent can come through together for an economy that is a prospective. But they're looking at just ensuring that this will come a reality, because for the longest of time they've been talking about how Africa is rich with mineral resources, but those mineral resources haven't been benefiting people on the ground. Like yesterday, Minister Ibrahim Patel just talking about the effect that colonialism is what has led us to where we are right now in terms of not tapping into these markets for the benefit of the people on the ground. So you still hear that most of these countries on the African continent are poor, but you tap into their resources, you hear that most of them are producing diamonds, most of them are producing gold, they are producing coal and the likes, and they're saying that it's a high time, or it's about time, that most of these resources tend to work for people on the African continent. So today we'll be hearing them talking about how really we can explore this. They're going to be having panel discussions as well, frank panel discussions, because yesterday they were clear to say that this must not be another talk shop. Frank panel discussions in terms of how we can actually tap into this market, explore this market, and ensure that the African economy works for Africans and not more or less Europeans and the likes, in terms of how the setup has been through the colonial years. So we're expecting high-level discussions, and I must say to you, Lee, and that most of them are really looking at more or less ensuring that this doesn't in any way become a talk shop, but there are realistic trade agreements that are signed for here, and those agreements will be checked upon in the coming years to ensure that they find meaning and they help the people on the ground in terms of ensuring that they industrialize Africa as well. Vian?